Hiya guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life, the YouTube channel that talks all things Wentworth. If you're new to the channel, then make sure you hit that subscribe button right now for future video updates. And as usual, if you stick around until the end of the video, I will be responding to some of your comments from a previous video. Okay, so episode 6 titled Fugitive. I felt this episode was a very powerful episode. The acting was superb and it had season 2, season 3 and season 4 vibes all about it. It was proper gritty Wentworth, and at times this episode there was a lot of disturbing dark moments. Now what I loved about this episode is how emotional it can make you feel for these characters, and even characters who have done bad things in the past. It was totally mind-blowing. So I'm going to start with Rita and Ruby, only because last week we were left hanging after Ruby was kidnapped by those dodgy police officers. So Ruby is currently being held captive by those officers that Rita has given evidence against, and of course Rita ain't gonna take it lying down. So this is Rita, you know. So Rita, she's been instructed to withdraw her statement and then they will literally let Ruby go. However, of course, Rita has plans of her own, so she's going to escape and save her sister. But there is just one problem. Rita has a tag around her ankle. So during the episode, Rita fakes a wrist injury and she ends up getting a bag of ice from her bodyguard, and she then heads to bed to rest. Now, Rita uses this bag of frozen ice against the tag on her ankle. Now, I am not sure how this worked, but somehow placing 2 bags of ice against her tag somehow froze the lock on the tag to a point where Rita could literally just break it open. Pretty cool, but I'm not sure if this would have worked in real life. I mean, I'm happy to roll with it. It might have been easier if Rita just cut it off with a knife or something. But anyway, we'll roll with it. So Rita manages to break from her tag and she does a runner from the safe house. And she's off on the hunt for Ruby. So first things first, Rita heads over to Ruby's boxing gym to speak to her coach, the guy who took Ruby to see Rita. Which, by the way, did you see that awesome drawing of Ruby up on the wall in the gym? It was pretty cool. I like that. Anyway, Rita finds Ruby's coach and she has words with him. So we learn that Ruby's coach didn't actually mean to place Ruby in grave danger. He thought that the cops who have got Ruby kidnapped, they just wanted to question Ruby. That's what he was led to believe. But, you know, totally unbeknown to him that they wanted to kidnap her. So Rita explains the situation and she gets him to ring Jonesy to meet up for his payment. But of course, Rita is going to go to Jonesy and then follow him back to wherever they have Ruby hidden. So that's exactly what Rita does. So when she gets to this big, massive, strange looking warehouse, she finds Ruby all tied up. And but Rita is literally hiding behind a load of things, so she can't be seen at this stage. So Jonesy comes back and he tells the other police guy that Ruby's coach didn't show up. And at that same moment, they get a tip-off phone call that Rita has escaped from protective custody. So straight away, they know Rita's up to something. They think that Rita probably has followed them back. So they think Rita is there right now. So one of them goes on the hunt around the warehouse, armed with a gun, looking for Rita. But of course, this is Rita. Rita is literally our queen. And Rita runs and has a little fight with this guy who has the gun. And they have a big, massive struggle. And then the gun suddenly goes off and it's killing the dodgy officer, but it covers Rita in blood. So the other police officer, Jonesy, now has the gun to Ruby's head, and Rita comes out of hiding and points her gun at Jonesy. But Jonesy tells Rita that he is going to kill Ruby if she doesn't drop her weapon. So Rita drops the gun and kicks it over to him and puts her arms behind her back. Now, Rita isn't stupid. She always has a plan B, and behind her back she has a big metal bar. So she ends up whipping it out and she smashes it against Jonesy's hand, knocking the gun out of his hand. And then, but Jonesy gets down, he grabs the gun and he fires it towards Rita and Ruby. But Rita straight away covers Ruby to protect her, which shows us that she's literally willing to take a bullet and die for her sister. It's a pretty cool scene, a few stunts, and Rita fires the gun back at Jonesy, but he ends up getting away. So they're back safe, both of them, and Rita unties Ruby and tells her that she needs to go back to Wentworth, make up some excuse that she went out for drinks with her friends, got drunk and missed curfew. I don't think that's going to work, mind you. I think Ruby has literally blown her early release. But anyway, that's what Rita tells Ruby to do. And poor Rita is now going to have to go on the run because she is now essentially a double murderess. Because even though she didn't mean to kill that dodgy cop, she has now messed up her whole chance of trying to be acquitted from prison. So there's literally nothing left for Rita now apart from prison. So she decides to go on the run and tells Ruby to get her ass back to Wentworth. So I really hope this doesn't mean that we're not going to get to see Rita for a few episodes, because I absolutely bloody love her character. I hope in the next episode, she goes to see her dying father, but she's then caught and arrested and brought back to Wentworth, because we really need Rita in there, because things are slowly going absolutely crazy in that prison. Which leads me on to my next part, Ferguson. So, we were treated to some amazing scenes with Ferguson this week, and my god, Pamela Rabe is such a fantastic actress. I literally cannot make up my mind about her memory loss. One minute I think she's faking, and then next minute I'm thinking that no, maybe she has lost her memory for the moment. But then I'm back to thinking, oh, she's faking, definitely. So, it's driving me insane, and I mean, I am convinced she is going to fake this memory loss to try and get herself out of prison and have all charges dropped. And then maybe by season 9, she will be back running that prison with full force of revenge in full swing. But anyway, let's stick to this episode for now. So Ferguson comes back to the prison, but she's immediately taken down to the psych ward, and Vera wants Dr. Miller to prove that Ferguson is faking. Vera ain't buying it at all. She knows Ferguson, and she thinks this is Ferguson just playing her usual Ferguson games, and she wants Dr. Miller to prove it. So, Dr. Miller introduces himself to her, and they have their first meeting. So, this is a brilliant scene. So, Dr. Miller asks her a couple of questions, like, what is your full name? And what is your date of birth? So she tells her, her name is Kath Maxwell. She doesn't know her date of birth. But an interesting question that does pop up is, has she ever been dependent on drugs in the past? And her reply is no. To which then Dr. Miller asks her, how do you know that? And Ferguson's reply is, she likes the feeling of being in control. A typical old school Ferguson, answer. I mean, this is Ferguson. It's got to be. It's driving me mad, guys. But also, I noticed when Dr. Miller is asking Joan these questions, if you notice, she's actually trying to lean up, peek. She's leaning up to try and peek to see what he is writing or what boxes he is ticking on that clipboard. And this is where I had those season 4 vibes, because if you cast your minds back to season 4, there was a scene where Bridget had a meeting with Ferguson and she asked Ferguson a load of questions. And when Ferguson was answering them, she was watching every move, every box that Bridget was ticking. She was watching every single move and every box that was being ticked. So it did get me thinking at this point in the episode, she must be faking. The only difference here is that Dr. Miller doesn't know Ferguson from the old days, whereas Bridget, she had history with Ferguson when she was conducting those series of questions. So this is like a total different version now. So Ferguson probably is seeing Dr. Miller as a blank canvas, and she is going to try and manipulate him and fool him. And then another interesting question that Dr. Miller asks Joan in the scene is if she has any family, and she replies saying no. So once again, Dr. Miller is saying, how do you know that? And her reply is, well, nobody came to the hospital to see me. And you can slowly start to see the emotion in her eyes at this point, because as we all know, Ferguson has always been this emotionless person and doesn't get close to anyone. She might have been close to her dad at some point, hence the reason why she has visions of him back in season 3. But if you remember in season 3, when Ferguson smashes up her apartment and she's having a bit of a breakdown, she breaks down crying in front of her dead father's ghost. So maybe the only person she has shown proper emotion to is her father. And I think this is something we're going to learn a lot more about in these next 2 episodes. So, but again, at this stage of the episode, I do feel like Joan is faking. So, fantastic scene, but this now moves on to our next big scene with Joan and Dr. Miller. So, Joan is showing some ink blot photos, where basically he is showing her a series of these ink photos, and all she has to do is tell him the first picture that pops in her head. So apparently, psychopaths will always see violent images in these sort of photos. So Dr. Miller is using this to try and see if he can get some sort of reaction from Joan and try and see if she lets slip her fake character of this Kath Maxwell. So the first 2 photos that he shows her, one is like a butterfly, and the other one, she tells him that she sees 2 Indian priests performing a traditional dance, which is really random. But then in this third photo that she is shown, it makes her stop in her tracks just for a moment. Now, I wasn't too sure what this photo was supposed to represent. I mean, can someone let me know in the comments box below? Because I thought maybe this was meant to represent the governor's badge. Do you remember the governor's pips, the badge logo? That's what I was thinking. And maybe this is why Joan struggled to come up with an innocent answer as quick as the first 2, because I wasn't too sure. So if someone can let me know in the comments box below, what was this image supposed to represent? Let me know, guys, that would be brilliant. Anyway, Joan eventually tells Dr. Miller that the image makes her think of 2 baby elephants drinking water out of a fountain. And so Vera is watching this session through one of the the one-sided glass mirrors, and she doesn't seem too impressed, and she casually just walks away, totally unimpressed. Vera ain't buying it, guys. She ain't buying it at all. Anyway, this brings me on to the next Ferguson scene, which was just the best out of the whole episode in my opinion, and it involves Jake coming in to see Ferguson alone. So Jake comes in, and straight away Ferguson tells Jake that she remembers him, and just for a split second you see the fear in Jake's face before Ferguson then goes on to say that she remembers him from the hospital coming to visit her, which of course he wasn't coming to visit her, he was trying to kill her, but obviously she woke up and she just thought he was visiting her. Anyway, there was a quick sigh of relief from Jake there, and Jake goes on to say hello Joan, and but she tells him not to call her that, her name is Kath Maxwell. And there is then like this great moment where Jake is just telling her that he doesn't care who she thinks she is, he doesn't care whether or not if she's faking or if she really has lost her memory. He is happy just to go along with her as long as she leaves him and his family alone. And this was just a brilliant moment, because he bends down to her and says this, and for 1 second you literally start to see the real Joan for a second. You almost see the snarl that she does, and again, this is literally messing with my head, because I don't know if she's faking or not at this stage. She almost broke character, but she didn't. It's just so crazy. I really think that she is just mind-fucking them at this stage. Like, she's really mind-fucking Will, Jake and Vera. And she's playing the long game. And I think this whole episode is about Ferguson convincing the officers and Dr. Miller that she really is Kath Maxwell. And then the next stage of her plan, maybe the next episode, is going to be all about her convincing the women. Especially the women who have got history with her. And she's going to then eventually just start mind-fucking the whole prison. But I really hope we find out for certain soon either way if she's faking or not, because as fascinating as it is, I really want to know the truth. I'm quite impatient in that respect. So some brilliant acting from Pamela Rabe in this episode and from Jake. And I cannot wait to see where this is going next week. Absolutely superb. Anyway, a very hard-hitting storyline that happened in this episode, and it was poor Reb Keane. So basically, Lou Kelly is taken to hospital at the start of this episode for the doctor to check on her finger. And while she is away, she gives Reb the mobile phone that they have, which, by the way, guys, we see how much money that they've got in that bank account, and it's just over $23,000. It's all going towards Reb's operation, but how the hell did they manage to get so much money in a short space of time in prison? I tell you what, guys, I think I'm in the wrong business. Anyway, Lou gives Reb the phone to look after when Lou goes to the hospital. And in a later scene, Reb is coming back from the showers in his dressing robe, and while he's in his cell, he's just like in the mirror checking out his body, seeing how things are coming along, because obviously Reb has recently started his HRT again, so in his own privacy he is checking his body out. But looking through the cell door is that critter character, Cynthia. Now, we don't know too much backstory about Cynthia, but it has been mentioned in previous episodes that she apparently likes them small or likes them young, heavily implying that she is some sort of dirty predator against the weak, the vulnerable, and even worse, against the younger people and the youngsters. So Cynthia comes into Reb's cell, and Reb quickly puts his bathrobe back on, and Cynthia basically is threatening Reb about the mobile phone. She's asking, Reb, where is Lou? Where is Fingers? And Reb is telling her that she will be back soon. And but Cynthia tries to tell Reb that she'll be gone for ages yet, and she wants the mobile phone. But Reb tells her that she will have to go through Lou to get the mobile phone. So when Reb tries to get Cynthia to leave, Cynthia then grabs Reb and pins him up against the sink and starts making disgusting sexual advances towards him and doing some very lewd, disgusting acts on him, basically trying to rape him. But luckily Mari comes in and saves the day, and I tell you what, I didn't think I'd be so happy to see Mari Winter. But Mari grabs a towel and puts it over Cynthia's head and smashes her head into the doorway as she's thrown out of the cell. So literally Mari to the rescue again here. And Mari tells Cynthia to fuck off, and when Mari then tries to comfort Reb understandably pulls away. Now, this wasn't a very nice scene to watch. I felt uncomfortable. I'm sure a lot of you guys felt uncomfortable. But unfortunately, this sort of thing happens to a lot of transgender people in or outside of prison. It happens to them a lot. And we learn a little bit later on that it happened to Reb before, a long time ago, and we learned that his own mum didn't even believe him when it happened, which was really heartbreaking to watch. And so Mari tells Reb that he reminds her of her son, and that Mari does believe that Reb is a man. She sees Reb as a man, and so Reb tells Mari that, her son was lucky to have her as a mum and things. But I tell you what, it's quite crazy, because it got me thinking. We got Reb here telling Mari about the time when he was raped, but then Mari is telling him that he reminds her of her son, yet Mari's son was a rapist. So it's quite a crazy chain of events here. I wonder if Reb would be so happy talking like this with Mari if he knew that that Mari's son was indeed a rapist himself. So I don't think he would be quite so open talking to Mari like this. But I do think at this stage that Mari is genuinely trying to be kind to Reb. But part of me is thinking, does she have some sort of other agenda? I can't help it with Mari because she's such a master manipulator. Or maybe Mari might end up getting some sort of sick, twisted fascination with Reb and start believing that maybe Reb is her real son. I don't know which way it's going to go, but I definitely think there's more to this that meets the eye. So I do think that Mari is up to something herself, because during this episode she asks Lou and Reb if they've ever thought about getting drugs into the prison to make some extra money for Reb's funding. But Lou tells Mari that gear is just too hard to bring in. But Mari tells Lou that LSD isn't hard to get in if you have the right contacts. And of course, Mari does have the right contacts. So later on, she gets a visit from one of her old business associates and starts to set it up, bringing the LSD in. So now I'm wondering where this is going, because is Mari going to spike someone with this LSD? Or maybe will Lou spike someone? Maybe Lou will spike Ali with LSD to teach her a lesson over the finger incident. I definitely think someone is going to get spiked later in this season, maybe next week or the week after, and it's not going to be pretty. So yes, I'm really torn with Mari. I do like her at the moment, but I'm not sure if I trust her. Like I said, she's a master manipulator, and I think she might come between Lou and Reb at some point. And when that happens, I wouldn't like to be in Mari's shoes when Lou comes for her. Absolutely crazy. But in the episode as well, Mari asks Reb if he's told Lou about what happened with Cynthia, and he tells her no, because Lou will literally kill her. And I would actually be all for Lou killing Cynthia after what we saw in this episode. But you know, obviously Reb doesn't want Lou to get sent behind bars for the rest of her life. So, but Mari now has this information that she could use at any time to push Lou over the edge. Remember, Mari likes to have dirt files and information on people, so maybe she is getting information through various people, various prisoners through the prison, and at some point she will use it to her own gain in her own way. And it's a very messy, twisted web that she is spinning at the moment. And again, it could go of a number of different ways, so I'd be interested to see what happens. But anyway, in this episode, it isn't Lou Kelly who Mari has to be worried about. It's actually Ali. Because Ali and Boomer, they end up thinking that Mari has something to do with Ruby disappearing. So they think that maybe Mari has had Ruby killed. So Boomer ends up bringing Mari to Ali's cell, and the pair of them start to question her. And Mari, for once, is actually telling the truth and tries telling Ali and Boomer that she doesn't know where Ruby is. And they don't believe her, so Boomer gives Mari a few good slaps and punches to the face, but she's still telling them that she doesn't know anything. So Judy ends up coming into the cell during the interrogation, and she ends up telling Ali and Boomer that she knows how to make Mari talk. So Judy sets up a plan to get Ali to waterboard Mari over the toilet. So Ali basically gets ties Mari to a chair, pulls her upside down and pours a big jug of water into Mari's face, literally giving her the torture feeling of drowning. And during this scene, you can clearly see that Judy Bryant is really enjoying this. She's enjoying watching Mari get tortured like this. It's quite sickening, and Judy's egging Ali on at this point, and it's making me think that Judy is not the nice girl who she says she is. I mean, I've talked about this before in previous videos, but I think Judy is indeed a terrorist. She isn't one of the good guys, and I think she is using Ali as a weapon herself at the moment. And she's going to end up pushing Ali over the edge, and literally Ali does lose it in this scene. She carries on pouring the water over Mari to the point where Mari actually starts drowning. And Boomer stops Ali from doing this. And I think when Boomer was watching Mari choke and drown on this water, it was bringing back memories of Liz, I think. And obviously when Boomer suffocated her, and it was kind of like it was creating the same effect, wasn't it? So I don't think Boomer could let Ali actually do this to Mari. So Boomer steps in and stops Ali. But then Ali literally just tells Boomer and Judy to get out, and Ali doesn't believe Mari, and she's going to continue torturing her alone. So things start getting pretty nasty, and eventually Mari and Ali are both on the floor. Mari is basically still telling Ali she doesn't know where Ruby is, and this is the first time in this season we see Ali break down in tears and in front of Mari. And she's just basically pleading with Mari at this stage. She's losing her badass, and she's starting to plead with Mari rather than demand from Mari to tell her the truth. But Mari ends up telling Ali that this isn't even about Ruby anymore, it's about them, and Ali not accepting that she once loved her. And this ends up pushing Ali even further over the edge if this is possible, and Ali gets on top of Mari, telling her that she should have put a bullet through her head, and then Ali picks up this shiv, and she is about to literally kill Mari. She's about to stab her in the face, in the eye or something. Oh, I literally thought Mari's number was up. But Boomer runs into the cell telling Ali that Ruby's been found, she's okay, and Mari was indeed telling the truth. So Ali lets Mari go, but you can literally see the madness in Ali's face at this stage. Ali is losing the plot big time. I think a lot of this is coming from behind the scenes with Judy Bryant, and I think as soon as Ferguson comes back into General next week, that's it. Ali is going to become the mad top dog. She's starting to get really out of control now, and I think Ali is all about being the top dog who isn't afraid of dishing out punishment and torturing people, whereas Kaz was a bit more in control. I mean, do you remember that famous quote back in season 4 when Kaz says the line, "The abused is now the abuser"? Well, I think this is now the path that Ali is going down, because I think all rules are being thrown out the window. It's not all about just being the tough guy. So yeah, all rules out the window, and wouldn't it be a big twist if Ali becomes the baddie in the end, and she has to be taken down as top dog for everyone's safety? I think it's going to be Ali's downfall. This is the start of it now, and I think next week we are going to be in for a bit of a shock. And this is why we need Rita back in there quick, smart, because things are absolutely out of control now. So there wasn't too much of Anne Reynolds in this episode. The small scene that she was in, she was being her usual bitchy self. And she has a little bit of a run-in with Will because he lets Judy out of the slot early, and they have a little bit of an argument. And Anne just tells Will that he's only governor because she made a deal with Vera. So Will goes to see Vera to see if this is true, and Vera, she confirms it. So Will is like, fine, I will just resign, but Vera tells him no, she did not come back to work at Wentworth just to watch him throw his career away. So she tells him that he just needs to hang on in there for the moment. Anne won't be there forever. She'll be gone soon, focusing on other prisons. However, I don't think so. Anne is there for the long haul. She has her own purpose and she has her own secrets. So, what I loved about this episode then is this ending scene. So, it had a real season 2 feel about it, because we had a few different scenes playing out at once with a really good song playing in the background. You know the song I'm a Creep? And I tell you what guys, it gave me shivers. And while it was playing in the background, we had Ali in his cell having a total breakdown. We had Jake watching Ferguson from the distance, and then Ferguson looking at herself in the mirror, and then we had Rita going on the run. It was the perfect end to a fantastic episode, and like I said, it just reminded me of season 2, because a lot of the season 2 episodes ended with multiple endings playing out at once with a really good dramatic song playing in the background. So it just had that season 2 feel about it. It was just fantastic. So everything is slowly falling apart now, things are out of control, and these last 4 episodes are going to be off the scale. Once again though, we had no Sheila, the new character, the one new character we've got left, but I am thinking that she might be with us next week, only because with Reb mentioning something about her mum in this episode, I have a feeling that Sheila could either be Reb's mum or someone who knows Reb's mum. So I think Sheila will be with us very soon, just because Reb mentioned her mum in this episode. So once again, a fantastic episode, very powerful, very disturbing. It proves that Wentworth can still shock us 8 seasons in. I think my favourite moment from this episode was the Jake and Ferguson scene. I just thought it was a really great moment, and these two literally bounce off each other so well at the moment, and I just loved it. So let me know in the comments box below guys, what was your favourite moment from this episode? Did you enjoy this episode as a whole? Because I've been reading great reviews this week from everyone, so let me know your thoughts in the comments box below. So on the subject of comments, it's now time for some comment replies. So we have a nice one. Joan has to be faking. It would be such a disappointment if Joan is no longer cruel and sinister. I have to agree. The bad Joan is still around. They wouldn't have brought her back just to have her as this weak person. She will be back to her old self very soon, I'm sure. So thank you for your comment. And we have Jan Jones. The freak says to Dr. Miller, I don't take drugs because I like being in control. Dead giveaway that she's faking her amnesia. Plus everything else she remembers about herself. Yep, I have to agree, Jan. I think that was the biggest giveaway for me. I like the feeling of being in control. Just gave it away for me. So I have to agree with you. Thank you for your comment. Never miss the water. Although I think these episodes are getting more and more trippy as the season progresses, I enjoyed seeing Boomer slap Mari around lol. The old Boomer from the earlier seasons. I was getting a tad bit scared for her. Oh, yes, I mean, you know, even though Mari was innocent in this episode, it was good to see Boomer going a little bit badass. We haven't seen Boomer go bunter, as she says, for quite a while, have we? So, yeah. And yeah, the episodes are getting more and more trippy, but I'm loving every minute of it. Thank you for your comment. And we have, is it Terry Wire? Anne is pure evil. She is trying to frame Judy with the NSO. She's probably in cahoots with Ferguson to abduct Vera's daughter as well. Ooh, interesting. You never know, because obviously Anne lost her daughter under tragic circumstances. Maybe she will try and abduct Vera's daughter at some point. I'm not sure if she's going to be in cahoots with Ferguson, because we didn't get any scenes with Anne and Ferguson in this episode. Did you notice? So maybe we may learn something about Anne and Ferguson next week, because like I said, they didn't show any scenes together, which is quite weird, because Anne up until now has been literally getting her hands dirty with everything in the prison apart from this. So you never know, she might be in cahoots with Ferguson. So thank you for your comments, and thank you all again for your amazing comments. Keep them coming. Maybe one of your comments will get featured in my next video. So here is a little sneak peek for next week, guys. Look at this. So here we have a photo of Ali and Ferguson in the shower block having a showdown, and apparently it's an amazing scene. So I hope this has got you all pumped up and excited for next week. I will be back very soon with a full spoiler video for next week's episode, so make sure that you're subscribed for that one. So there we are, guys. If you've made it this far into the video, then thank you all for watching, and I will see you all very soon.